Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of American Civil War with Joe's Bang and Dang, and we're still messing around in the old Shenandoah Valley. Sheridan still trying to get rid of Early, and then the next one's kind of confusing to people because it's the Sulphur Creek Trestle, but also known as the Battle of Athens. And if you guys remember, we had the Battle of Athens already, but this Athens was in Georgia. That Athens was in Georgia. This Athens is in Alabama, and I believe there's another second Athens somewhere down the line as well. So, yeah. And then we'll have the Battle of Fort Davidson. So we're going back to Missouri, visiting Price and his Missouri expedition as well, and that's going to be our biggest battle of the day. Yeah, not much going on in the first two battles. Before we get into it, go check our YouTube at Bang Dang Network. You can get our full episodes of all of our podcasts over there. Plus, we post little shorts, clips. And if you guys are interested in our Dart League, we moved that to a new channel, the Liquor Shelf Lounge Dart League. We'll leave the link in the description. So give us a subscription over there. If you're just listening on Spotify, Apple, still go over to the Darts channel, give us a subscription, and leave us a review. Share us with your friends. Answer that Spotify question, starting out with the Battle of Fisher's Hill. Fought September 21st to the 22nd, 1864, near Strasburg, Virginia. Well, Major General Philip Sheridan had about 35,000 men in the Shenandoah Valley opposing Jubal Early, with just under 10,000 for him. Early, following the Third Battle of Winchester, which was just our last episode, took a strong position. His right rested on the north branch of the Shenandoah River, and the left flank of his infantry was on Fisher's Hill. Confederate cavalry was expected to hold the ground from there to Little North Mountain.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Union Major General George Crook advised Sheridan to flank this position. His command was assigned to move along the wooded slopes of the mountain to attack the cavalry.
Oh, shit. Here we go. Well, Crook's attack began 4 p.m., 22nd of September, 1864. Infantry attack pushed the old Rebs out of their way. Get out of our way, Rebs. Major General Stephen Dotson Ramseur, he tried refusing the left flank of his division. Crook and Brigadier General James Ricketts' division of Horatio Wright's 6th Corps, they struck Ramseur's line, pushing it real in.
Hey, wait. Horatio Wright, isn't that the dude that ran against Grant?
Maybe.
For the presidency?
Very possible.
I'm almost positive. How'd that happen? They're supposed to be buds.
Nope.
Yeah, there was another Horatio something that ran against him, no? Horatio Governor.
I really like that name. Governor.
I wonder was it English?
I'm sure. Wright's remaining divisions, the 19th Corps, they broke the southern line as well.
The Confederates fell back to Waynesboro, Virginia. Brigadier General Alfred Torbert was sent into the Luray Valley with 6,000 cavalrymen to force his way through the 1,200 Confederate cavalrymen, which were under Brigadier General Williams Wickham. Torbert was then supposed to move through the New Market and the Luray Gap in Massanutten Mountain and come up behind Early and cut off his retreat at Fisher's Hill. Torbert fell back after making a token effort against Wickham's force at Milford, which is present day Overall, and Early escaped.
Oh.
Poor guy.
That shit. 4 Union Army enlisted men, and 1 officer received the Medal of Honor in action at Fisher's Hill. Private James Connors, 43rd New York Infantry. Private John Creed, 23rd Illinois Infantry. Private George G. Moore, 11th West Virginia Infantry. You got Sergeant Sylvester D. Rhodes, 61st Pennsylvania Infantry. First Lieutenant Edward N. Whittier, he had the 5th Battery Maine Light Artillery. All those guys getting that old Medal of Honor. No Purple Hearts, huh? Did they do that then?
I don't know.
Civil War Trust and its partners have acquired and preserved 362 acres of this very battlefield. The preserved portion of the battlefield is marked by trails and interpretive signs that say stuff happened here and
Right. Cool.
people lay there. And
362 acres.
are you allowed to have a metal detector?
No.
Oh, that's
Obviously not.
that'd be fun.
No.
You can at least dig it up and put it back.
No. I mean, you might. Maybe you get a permit.
Take pictures of it and shit.
Put it back. I'm sure if you found something, they would want it.
Right. Well, I'm sure they were looking.
Maybe.
You think?
Well, it's going to bring us to the Battle of Sulphur Creek Trestle, also known as the Battle of Athens, which was fought near Athens, Alabama, and Limestone County, Alabama.
Limestone County.
Which was from September 23rd to the 25th. Afternoon of the 23rd, Union forces engaged Confederate forces 5 miles south of Athens near Tanner, where they were destroying a railroad trestle.
Damn.
General Nathan Bedford Forrest's Confederate forces moved towards Athens. That evening, the Confederate forces gained control of the town, and the Union forces had retreated within Fort Henderson.
Oh, shit. The old Rebs began an artillery barrage on the morning of the 24th. In a personal meeting, Forrest convinced the Union commander, Colonel Wallace Campbell, that the old Rebs' forces numbered 8,000 to 10,000. Campbell then surrendered the fort and its garrison around noon.
Wow.
Shortly after the garrison had surrendered, reinforcements consisting of 350 men from the 18th Michigan and 102nd Ohio, commanded by Jonas Elliott, arrived by train from Decatur. After suffering casualties of 1/3 of the total personnel, these forces surrendered as well.
I mean, there was only 350 men. Oh, geez, what do you think we're going to do about that? After defeating the Union forces in Athens, Forrest moved north along the railroad with the intent to destroy a strategic trestle at Sulphur Creek, 6 miles north of Athens. A fortification, 2 blockhouses, and a force of 1,000 Union soldiers defended the trestle.
Okay.
On the morning of the 25th, the Confederate forces began an artillery bombardment of the fort. The fortification had been built below the summits of adjacent hills and thus provided little defense against the bombardment. Who decides to build a fucking fort on the bottom of hills?
Wow. 200 Union soldiers murdered, including Commander Colonel William Hopkins Lathrop. By noon, George Spaulding surrendered the remaining 800 soldiers. There were no reported Confederate losses. Union prisoners were transferred to Confederate prisons. Many of these prisoners died on April 27, 1865, when the steamboat Sultana sank while transporting them home.
Yeah,
that sucks.
We're going to learn about that as soon as we're done with all the battles.
You survive being prisoner of war, and then you die in a damn boat accident.
It was on the Mississippi. You know how much that shit happened back then? It's crazy. And it had a capacity of only 376 passengers, but she had 2128 on it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
Well, that's what it looked like the day before.
Way too fucking heavy.
Holy shit, dude.
I'm surprised it was still floating.
Well, how'd it die? Oh, it exploded.
Oh, shit.
Oh, the boiler exploded, right?
Faulty boiler repair. Well, plus being overloaded, the boiler's working overtime.
Right.
That's sad.
Yeah, we'll learn about that a little bit more. That's going to do it for that Battle of Sulphur Trestles. The Battle of Athens, Alabama.
Right.
Going to bring us to the big battle of the day, or of the episode, not of the day, because this is a different date, September 27th. Fort Davidson, also known as the Battle of Pilot Knob, in Price's Missouri Expedition, near Pilot Knob, Missouri.
Oh.
At the start of the war in 1861, the state of Missouri was a slave state, but did not secede, yes. However, the state was politically divided. Governor Claiborne Jackson and the Missouri State Guard supported secession and the rebellion, while Brigadier General Nathaniel Lyon and the Union Army supported, I would assume they would support the United States.
Right.
Oh, Nathaniel Lyon. Remember him?
Nathaniel Lyon.
He was all over our first
Sure the hell was.
episodes.
Was everywhere.
He died.
Under Major General Sterling Price, the Missouri State Guard defeated Union armies at the battles of Wilson's Creek and Lexington in 1861. But by the end of this very year in 1861, Price and the Missouri State Guard were restricted to the southwestern portion of the state. Meanwhile, Jackson and a portion of the state legislature, they voted to succeed and join the old Rebs. Like, we want to be part of the Confederate States of America. While another element of the legislature voted to reject succession, essentially giving the state 2 governments. Well, March 1862, a Confederate defeat at the Battle of Pea Ridge in Arkansas gave the Union control of Missouri. And the old rebel activity in the state was largely restricted to guerrilla warfare and raged throughout 1862 and 1863.
Sure was. Well, by the beginning of September 1864, events in the eastern United States, especially the Confederate defeat in the Atlanta campaign, gave Abe Lincoln an edge in the elections over George McClellan. Abe supported continuing the war. George McClellan said, we need to get out of the war. At this point, the Confederacy had very little chance of winning.
Yeah,
of course. Meanwhile, in the Trans-Mississippi Theater, the Confederates had defeated Union attackers during the Red River Campaign in Louisiana, which took place from March through May.
They did. Wow. As events east of the Mississippi River turned against the Confederates, General Kirby Smith, rebel commander of the Trans-Mississippi Department, was ordered to transfer the infantry under his command to the fighting in the eastern and western theaters. However, this proved to be impossible, as the Union Navy controlled the Mississippi River, preventing a large-scale crossing. Despite having limited resource for an offensive, Smith decided that an attack designed to divert Union troops from the principal theaters of combat would have an equivalent effect to the proposed transfer of troops through decreasing the Confederates' numerical disparity east of the Mississippi.
All right, so yeah, we're going to attack them over here and shuttle a whole bunch of guys over on the river when they're not looking. So Price and the Confederate governor, Thomas Reynolds, suggested that an invasion of Missouri would be an effective offensive. Smith approved the plan and appointed Price to command the offensive.
All right. Get it going.
Price suspected that the offensive would create... How many times are we going to say offensive?
All right.
Price expected that the mission would create a popular uprising against Union control of Missouri, divert Union troops away from the principal theaters of combat, which many of the Union troops previously defended Missouri had been transferred out of the state, leaving the Missouri State Militia to be the state's primary defense.
Oh, shit.
And it would aid McClellan's chance of defeating Lincoln in the election, they're saying. Too. September 19th, Price's column, named the Army of Missouri, entered the state.
McClellan couldn't even be a good general. It makes him think he's going to be a good president.
Right.
Jeez, oh, Peter. When Price...
Well, when he was running, the primary thing was, remember that battle where all his dudes were getting slaughtered, and he was on the boat eating steak dinners and shit? And fucking, yeah, that became like a big thing during the election. They like fucking hounded him.
Right. When Price entered the state, he had about 13,000 men, many of which were poorly armed and had no weapons at all. Holy shit. The old rebel force included 14 cannons, but these were of small bore, which limited their effectiveness against fortifications.
Price, I guess if his goal is just to distract,
right?
But still,
you gotta have something. Price's force was divided into 3 divisions, commanded by Major General James Fagan and Brigadier Generals
Fagan, clearly,
and Brigadier Generals John Marmaduke and Joseph O. Shelby.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of these guys in a while.
Around 10,000 Union soldiers scattered across Missouri, of whom about 3,000 were assigned to the St. Louis region. Under the command, Brigadier General Thomas Ewing. Many of Ewing's men were in units of the Missouri State Militia or the Enrolled Missouri Militia. Fantastic.
Well, many of the Missouri State Militia had guerrilla warfare experience. The Enrolled Missouri Militia soldiers were poorly trained and equipped.
I bet.
Price learned that the town of Pilot Knob and one end of the St. Louis and Iron Mountain Railroad was held by Union troops while he was at Fredericktown September 24th.
Oh.
He did not want to leave a Union force free to operate in his rear, so he decided to move aggressively against the Union column. To accomplish this, he sent Shelby with his division north of Pilot Knob to disrupt the railroad September 26th, while sending Fagan and Marmaduke directly against the troops.
Oh, shit. Here we go. Ewing, he commanded the Union force near Pilot Knob, which was 1,456 strong, 856 Union Army soldiers, 450 militiamen, and a group of 150 mobilized citizens.
Oh, shit. Here, take out the shotgun.
Right. Additionally, Price learned on the 25th that Union Major General Andrew Smith and 8,000 men were near St. Louis, which caused him to doubt his ability to take that very city.
Yeah.
26th of September, Price, he began moving his army from Fredericktown towards the Arcadia Valley, with Fagan's division in the lead. The entrance to the valley, Shut-in Gap, was unguarded. So Fagan, he sent Colonel William Slemmon's brigade temporarily under the command of Colonel John Wright. He said, "Go forward, boys. Check this shit out."
Well, Wright did indeed go forward with about 250 men, and he surprised a small Union detachment, which managed to send a messenger warning a detachment of the 47th Missouri Infantry Regiment at Ironton and the Union command at Fort Davidson further north. Ewing responded by sending 80 men, that's it, from the 3rd MSM, what is that, the militia? State Militia?
Yeah,
Missouri State Militia. From the 3rd Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment to investigate the reports. Wright's men scattered the militia soldiers, but were repulsed by the detachment of the 47th Missouri Infantry when they tried to drive through the Ironton.
Fantastic. Damn. Well, after hearing sounds of battle from the valley, Ewing sent Major James Wilson and several hundred cavalrymen towards the fighting, and later followed Wilson himself with a force from the 14th Iowa Infantry and 2 cannons from the 2nd Missouri Light Artillery Regiment. Right. The 2 groups joined with the Union detachment already in Ironton, around 15 hundo. They attacked under the command of Wilson and drove right back towards the gap. Oh, just pushing the old Rebs back, huh?
Well, Ewing, under the impression that he was fighting with Shelby's men, left Wilson and his force in the valley and personally returned to Fort Davidson.
Oh.
He then made preparations to defend against the Confederate attack at the fort and send extra supplies up the railroad to Smith.
Fantastic.
As more Confederate troops passed through Shut-in Gap, Wilson realized he was facing a very large enemy force. Around 10:30 p.m., Ewing gave Wilson permission to withdraw to a more secure position near Ironton.
I bet I did. The reports also made right. The reports also made Ewing unsure about the wisdom of attempting to hold Pilot Knob. That very night, he asked several of his subordinates for their opinions about the best course of action. After some discussion, Ewing decided to hold the fort.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Influenced by the uncertainty of being able to hold the poorly trained portions of his force together during the retreat. The political aspirations of Ewing
Of course. Oh, there you go.
Right. And Thomas Fletcher of the 47th Missouri Infantry also contributed to the decision to fight it out, as a retreat was thought to be politically detrimental. Yeah, it would hurt Lincoln.
We'll never get elected. Well, they're talking about for themselves.
All right. The supplies and some civilians were evacuated and via the railroad.
Good. Fort Davidson is near the town of Pilot Knob, yes, which is located in a plain between four peaks: Pilot Knob, Shepherd Mountain, Rock Mountain, and Cedar Hill.
Nice.
Fort Davidson was preceded by an earlier structure known as Fort Hovey, later renamed Fort Curtis after Major General Samuel Curtis.
Okay.
That was built by the Union soldiers in 1861, south of the future location of Fort Davidson. Fort Curtis was armed with four 32-pounder guns, three 24-pounder howitzers, and two Coehorn mortars.
Look at that shit.
It's the first we're hearing about those. Eventually, 8 smaller artillery pieces were added to the fort.
Look at that shit. Good for them, right? Fort Curtis's location was viewed as a disadvantage, as it was not located in a place where it could easily guard the important local iron deposits and a nearby railroad. So I have it there. Fort Davidson was constructed 1863 near the base of Pilot Knob in order to better protect those features. Built in the shape of a hexagon.
Aren't they always?
Fort Davidson had earthen walls.
Oh, that's not good.
In his book, Price's Lost Campaign, the 1864 Invasion of Missouri, the historian Mark A. Louse, he stated that the fort's walls were 100 feet long, while the historian Cal Sinisi, he said, no, they're about 150 feet.
I don't think so, Mark. Look at it. Hey, dude. Fucking Civil War historians are just like the officers in the Civil War. Always like,
My goodness.
either exaggerating numbers or trying to one-up each other. I mean, holy shit. These walls were either 5 feet, as per Sinisi, or 9 feet high, as per Fort Davidson's National Register nomination form and historian Everett Castell.
Well, I'll take the one that's the National Register nomination form.
2 rifle pits, also described as trenches, were constructed, one to the north, one to the southwest. The fort's magazine was located in the inner portion of the fort, I would assume, and underground, with 15 feet of dirt and some wood planking serving as protective covering.
Look at that shit.
All right.
Fantastic. 1864 inspection produced a report finding that the terrain of the mountains exposed defenders of Fort Davidson to potential enfilade fire. Surrounding the fort was a 10-foot wide moat. Castell and Louse, they state that the moat was around 6 feet deep.
Let me guess. Oh, Sinisi's not going to agree with that, is he?
Well, the NRHP form provides that the depth is 7 feet. And Sinisi, and also a writer for the Missouri Archaeological Society, give it a depth of 8 feet. So it's between 6 and 8 feet.
Right. Could be even 9.
Right. Fort Davidson was named for Brigadier General John W. Davidson, who had commanded Union troops in the area in 1862. Well, that's fantastic.
Right. Well, by the morning of September 27th, Marmaduke's men had reinforced Fagan. That morning, the combined Confederate force attacked and drove Wilson back. The Confederates were eventually able to take the ground between Shepherd Mountain and Pilot Knob. About 9:15 a.m., Union artillery from the fort drove off Confederate troops who were advancing from Ironton, but the men from the 14th Iowa Infantry who had been holding a forward position came under friendly fire from both the fort and a group of 3rd Missouri militiamen cavalry troops under the command of Wilson holding Pilot Knob.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Look at that shit. Oh, man. This caused the Iowans. This caused the Iowans to withdraw into Fort Davidson. Ewing was offered surrender terms, but declined, at least partially because he feared execution by Price's men as revenge for his insolence of General Order 11 the previous year. Oh, yeah, that guy. Mm-hmm. He deserves it, which had deported civilians from 4 Missouri counties. The old rebel artillery then opened fire on Wilson's men at Pilot Knob, who withdrew into the fort. After Wilson fell back, the Confederate guns fired on Fort Davidson, but no effect, if any, little maybe.
Yep.
With Wilson gone, Fagan moved into the area between Pilot Knob and Rock Mountain, where they began pillaging houses until Union artillery fire drove them to the other side of the Pilot Knob.
Well, meanwhile, Confederate troops began to line in for an attack. The brigades of Slemons and Colonel Thomas McCrae aligned on Pilot Knob, and Brigadier General William Cabell's brigade held the gap between Pilot Knob and Shepherd Mountain. Brigadier General John Clark's brigade was on Shepherd Mountain, and Colonel Thomas Freeman's brigade and Slayback's battalion were north of Shepherd Mountain. Colonel Archibald Dobbins, that's a distinguished gentleman,
Right.
His brigade was also north of the town in a position to block a Union retreat if necessary.
Fantastic. Price's plan called for concurrent attacks. Historian Albert Castell placed Confederate strength in 2 divisions of Marmaduke and Fagan at about 8,700 men, while the historian Kyle Sinisi he estimated that Price had 4,700 men available to attack with the fort, after detaching 20% of his force to hold the dismounted attackers' horses. Really? Fagan and Marmaduke had supported the idea of frontal attack, expecting the fort to fall quickly. Price's chief engineer had instead suggested that the artillery should be placed on top of Shepherd Mountain and used to bombard Fort Davidson into submission.
Well, to support the attack, the Confederates attempted to move 4 cannons taken from Heinsohn's battery and Harris's battery onto Shepherd Mountain, but only 2 of the guns were able to be moved into position due to rough terrain.
Oh.
Well, some engineer that fucking guy was.
Right.
In the early afternoon, Ewan sent a part of the 14th Iowa Infantry forward to scout the Confederate position. It was driven back under heavy fire.
Okay.
Wilson was also sent on detached duty to hold the town of Pilot Knob. 2 Confederate artillery pieces on the mountain attempted to shell the fort, but had little success.
Very little.
About 2 p.m., the main Confederate attack began. The Confederate attacks would not be well coordinated, allowing Union troops to repulse them individually.
Oh, wow. So sad.
One by one.
Clark's and Cable's brigade started the attack. The right wing of Clark's brigade separated the brigade's left and served alongside Cable's men.
Oh, geez.
Cabell. After crossing a creek bed, some of the old Rebs reached as far as the Fort Moat before firing. The Confederate fire had very little effect, as most of it was stopped by sandbags. Fort Davidson was occupied at well over twice its design capacity, and Ewing exploited this by having some of his men load weapons while others fired.
Look at that.
This provided heavy fire that drove Cable and Clark's men back to the creek bank. Some of the old Rebs, in particular the 4th and 8th Missouri Cavalry regiments, had made it no further than the creek itself.
When Slemons's and McCrae's men attacked the fort from Pilot Knob, they captured Wilson, who was later executed by Confederate soldiers and scattered his men. Oh, geez, Wilson.
Wilson!
When the Confederates came under fire from the fort, they broke quickly. Wright, who was now back in regimental command, led his men alongside Cabell's and made it most of the way to the moat before being repulsed. Later, Cabell's brigade made another charge, this time with the support of 2 cannons, but it was again repulsed. North of the fort, Slayback's and Freeman's men finally attacked at 1600.
They detached a number of men to harass some Union wagons near Rock Mountain before attacking the North rifle pits with the rest of their commands. The defenders of the line, men of the 3rd Missouri Militia Cavalry, eventually retreated, but the old Rebs were unable to take the fort and fell back anyway. Cable, he ordered his brigade to make a 3rd attack, and some of his men were able to cross the moat before being driven off by hand grenades, horseshoes as well, thrown by Union defenders. Cable's survivors fell back beyond the creek. Clark's men abandoned the creek line after dark.
Jeez, after the fighting died down, Commander Alonzo Slayback sent Ewan a note that the U.S. colored troops within the fort would be massacred if captured.
Uh-oh.
Price decided to try further attacks the next day. Believing that the moat had been the primary obstacle, Price ordered his men to spend the night building ladders to be used in crossing the moat.
Nice.
Meanwhile, Union decided to abandon the fort that night.
Oh, shit. All that time building fucking ladders. All right. Jacob's ladders. The Union soldiers slipped past the old Rebs of Dobbin's brigade surrounding the fort, and a trailing group...
How does thousands of men slip past a whole thing
That's crazy.
of guarding that supposedly surrounded the fort? Doesn't make any sense.
Right. And a group that was trailing the Unions, they detonated Fort Davidson's magazine before they left. The old Rebs neither noticed the escape nor reacted to the explosion. What? Union casualties.
Well, I mean, they're building ladders.
Right. Union casualties, 213. Costello, he placed Confederate casualties as between 8 and 1,000.
Well, what do you got to say, Sinisi?
Well, Sinisi was like, no, they had 500. Cabell's brigade lost about 10% of its strength.
Jeez. Ewan survivors retreated in the direction of Rolla via Leesburg and was pursued part of the way by Shelby's and Marmaduke's men, while Price took Fagan's division north, destroying railroad depots in the process.
No shit.
The Confederates pursuing Ewan's men eventually broke off the pursuit and rejoined Price's main body September 29th.
As well.
October 1st, Confederate troops occupied the town of Pacific, which is within 40 miles of St. Louis.
Uh-oh.
Confederate morale was depressed by the bloody attacks, which also revealed that the units of Price's army were largely of low quality.
Well, no shit.
Price decided to cancel the attack against St. Louis, I would do, and instead move westwards towards the state capital of Jefferson City.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to mess with St. Louis right now. You ain't got nobody. 7th of October, Price's army had reached high ground near Jefferson City. However, Price, with the failed attacks against Fort Davidson in mind, He decided that the garrison of the city was too strong to attack, and instead he continued moving west. With the Union troops near the Kansas-Missouri state line and more following him west, Price's army moved towards Kansas City, fighting several small actions on the way. 23rd October, Price was defeated near Kansas City by a sizable Union force in the Battle of Westport. We'll get to that.
Well, then the Confederates retreated back through Kansas, suffering several further defeats along the way, including a disastrous rout at Mine Creek October 25th, in which Marmaduke and other hundreds of men were captured. Union troops pursued Price's defeated army all the way to Arkansas.
No.
The Confederates eventually retreated all the way to Texas.
Damn.
During the campaign, Price had lost over 2/3 of his men. That was just retarded, dude.
Holy shit. 1968, Fort Davidson battlefield was added to the Missouri State Park system.
Wait, are you sure, Sinizzi? Does he confirm that? Or
Right. The fort was further added to the National Register of Historic Places on February 26, 1970. A mass grave containing battlefield dead is marked by a granite monument, and the fort's walls, as well as the crater created when the magazine was detonated. They are still visible at this very site.
Okay, wait a minute. So if the fort walls are still visible,
All right.
why were these two arguing about how long the walls were?
Right. That's fucking right there. A visitor center is located at the site, and it contains a research library, a fiber optic display, some artifacts, including Ewing's sword. Oh, nice. American Battlefield Trust and associates have been involved in preservation of 41 acres at that very site.
Okay. Good for them.
Yeah.
So, worthless. Price
yeah.
is not very good.
No, Price is he's
That
about
was
done.
just retarded to even go into Missouri at all, but
Right, he's about done.
yeah, I would say so.
He's in Texas. He'll probably never come out of Texas again.
If you want to go to Texas, you got to get defeated in the war. Well, coming up next week, we're going to have the Battle of Mariana in Florida. Then we're going to have the Battle of Chaffin's Farm in Virginia. And the Battle of People's Farm, also in Virginia. And most likely the first Battle of Saltville, also in Virginia.
Oh.
So, which, one out of those four, the Confederate win. What does Grant do?
Right.
He does nothing until 1865 when Petersburg finally gets unsieged. Finally, we get some main army attacks or stuff going on next week. So, cool. Good for us. Go check out our YouTube at Big Dang Network. And if you're listening or if you're interested in our Dart League, go check out the Dart channel. The link will be in description. If you listen on Spotify, Apple, make sure to give us a review. Share some with your fans. Answer that Spotify question back next week for at least 3 or 4 more battles of this American Civil War as we are winding down the year of 1864 and into 65 for no reason when it should be over already anyways. But we'll be there. We'll be back next week. More battles of the American Civil War. The month of good years.
Bang, dang.